if we had known so we were going to have to default to VFX in certain situations, we would have really planned some of that stuff, because on a budget of this size, when the VFX gets kicked down the road, you're sort of like, okay. And then you have to you do get creative, but it was, for us, if we could do it practically, that is always our desire.
I'm very excited to talk with you both for this movie. It is quite the blast for a horror genre fan like myself.
Thank you.
Ari, I'll start with you, and then Eren, where did the concept for this movie come about, since you guys are co-writers and directors on this project?
The script came in as a spec to Agbo initially. J.J. Brader wrote the first draft, did an amazing job. And Eren and I sort of fell in love with the concept of a demon who sort of plays demonic and twisted versions of children's games. And the Russos had seen a couple shorts that we had done, and obviously I have had a relationship with them for many years, and they sort of encouraged us to lay claim to something at Agbo. And we thought this was something that, first of all, we're huge genre fans, and we thought this was something that we could do together and collaborate on. And what we did was we spent a lot of our effort and time focusing on the characters and the relationships, and making sure that the sibling dynamic was authentic and grounded and real. And we drew a lot of inspiration from looking at Amblin films, specifically E.T., and that authentic portrayal of a mother and children in their relationship, a traumatic, father had left, the sort of them navigating through the trauma together. And we also took inspiration from films like mid-90s and Lady Bird in 8th Grade, and looking at, teenagers and their dynamics and just authentic portrayals of those relationships. So that's what we spent a lot of the time rewriting and focusing our efforts on.
I think beyond the writer-director work that we did, that got us, the other thing that got us excited was the tension between the genres within the project. For us, like, we wanted to do our sort of mantra to our department heads was, and then actually when we were pitching it, was Amblin meets John Carpenter. And so I think it was that tension of a coming of age story, in the subgenres of possession and a slasher film, and even a haunted house film at the end to a certain degree. And so that was really, because we love genre, we love blending genre. And so as a filmmaking exercise, it was so exciting to be like, okay, this is what we could do as filmmakers in terms of the kinds of movies that we like, and smuggling this kind of very meaningful message about, families that are going through things, whether they be divorce or trauma, and linking that to the mythology of the past, and sort of where it's sort of it's already apparent. And then this whole metaphor of games, which is like games as a metaphor for life and childhood, and your parents can't be there when you're playing them with your friends, even though they maybe they should be. So that all of that stuff was just really exciting to dig into as filmmakers.
I do love the blend of, like you both are saying, the family drama in the midst of the horror. It was they both played off really well. And so in talking about the sibling dynamic, then what was it like looking for the perfect trio of stars? Because obviously Natalia has quite the history of horror so far. Asa a little bit as well. And then my brain is blanking on the third name.
Ben Ainsworth.
Yes. Thank you. And so, what was it like, that casting process, finding the perfect sibling dynamic?
We were super lucky that Asa and Natalia responded to the script, and we're down to do something very different. Natalia, even, that hair in the movie is her real hair. Like, she dyed it, she cut it. She was doing her whole Lydia Dietz, meets kind of Uma Thurman, which we were so excited about. And everyone was like, she can't do that. And she's like, no, I'm doing it. And Asa do something different, and they were just amazing collaborators because they're both so much more experienced than we are. So that was a joy. And Ben really is the responsibility, was the gift of our casting director, Jessica Sherman, who, because it was a very small budget, very small film for all things considered, he's from England. And so she just kind of snuck him in and was like, I think you guys should see his tape. And the minute we saw it, we're like, wow, this guy is like a little pro, and he just blew us away. And then we kind of went to the mat for him. But because it was really important for us because we didn't want to have a 18-year-old playing 13. We wanted him to really be someone who you believe coming of age, which adds, problems with hours and doubles and all of the stuff that comes with that. But, that once we had those three, it was just, then we were able to, we had young rising stars like Laurel Madsen, and and Colton Stewart, Annabeth Gish came into the mix. Was so yeah. I mean, building our family was one of the most important parts that our casting director helped us with.
We had 20 days to shoot the movie, so we we're cruising at a pretty breakneck pace. But one of the things that we demanded from our producers, if we were going to have to shoot this movie in 20 days, was the potential to have a week of rehearsal, or at least to have our actors arrive a week early so that we could get them, hanging out together, going to dinner together. We found a cafe in Winnipeg where we shot the movie that had just board games, endless amounts of board games. So we literally had family game night to just like help that dynamic and work on those relationships. So that was really nice as well.
Yeah. And to be able to rehearse with them was also just, we prefer that, if anything, more prep than not, and so they were just down. All of our actors were down, which was really, really great.
I love that you both mentioned the rehearsals. That was my next question, was allowing them time to come together as a group. So I love that. Now, another thing I love about this movie, and you both talked about your love of genre, is the look of this movie. I mean, this is a very dark, brooding movie. The visual style of the other world is haunting to see. What was it like developing the look in particular for this movie?
I mean, we worked, collaboratively with our DP, Ricardo Diaz, who was just like a truly amazing partner on this film. And I think, for us, there were a few different touchstones. Like, Aaron and I weren't afraid of color. We love the idea, especially in horror films, we love the idea of pops of color. Looking at like Jordan Peele's Us and looking at The Shining and looking at movies of that ilk, we love the idea of the fact that something horrific can still either happen in the daytime or in the presence of color, right? So we weren't afraid to chase that. And we also looked specifically to movies like E.T. as well. But then when we were actually crafting a methodology about how we're going to shoot the movie, it's like, very aware of, 20 days, there's not a lot of room for error. There's a small margin of error in there. So it's like, we embraced the idea of having two cameras. Even though we didn't have sets, we had to have a location. So sometimes you couldn't get another camera in there. But one of the scenes that we're most proud of is crafting the scene in the top of the barn during hide and seek, where we actually use a special lens to move into the hay to find one of our characters' eyeballs and realize, like, the suspenseful tension of finding out where she's hidden in the barn. We had a really amazing time crafting that. Aaron, I don't know if you want to speak further.
Well, no, just that barn sequence was really probably the only set piece that we had a full night to do. We sort of bargained and begged and stole to get. We're like, guys, this is the most designed sequence in the film, and so we made compromises to get that. And then beyond that, like Ari was saying, kind of the daytime look and the night look, sort of was an homage to sort of E.T. and John Carpenter, because we always said the tension of the movie is Amblin meets John Carpenter. That's what we're hoping to try and achieve. But then creating the look of the in-between, that was a discovery. I mean, we knew we wanted it to be, weird lenses, which our DP found this old Japanese lens called the Kawa that has this sort of bend on the sides, that falls off. And then finding that kind of rotten yellow sodium thing, distinguish it from everything that you kind of always see, which is like a little bit too, like a lot of neon stuff you're seeing in films nowadays. So we were just trying to go to be able to create so many different looks in the movie was also really exciting, to have it be unified. But also we had the past with Daniel's stuff, that also had a little bit of the deaconizer stuff going on, with the vignetting. And so it was, to us, obviously it's all unified, but each of those looks presented a different visual opportunity that was so exciting.
That barnyard sequence barn upper sequence.
Yeah.
It was chilling. And yeah, that shot that you mentioned I was impressed. I was like, wow, for low or indie budget movie, this is a really cool shot. And on top of that, speaking of indie budget, the visual effects in this movie are really cool with the spirits and how they feel both practical and visual effect, or CGI. I don't want to say heavy, but utilizing CGI. How did you go about deciding, that balance, especially given that you were working on the lower budget that you guys mentioned?
Listen, some of it was about what we could practically afford and our limitations. Some of it was us wanting to embrace like the idea of ghosts hiding in plain sight a little bit in the way that The Shining does. And some of it was looking to like Haunting of Hill House and what they had done, what Flanagan had done with some of his ghosts. And I think we were inspired by those sorts of things, but it was also about like practically what we could achieve for the budget and also the time. The amount of time actors could sit in a makeup chair, whether they were underage or like that. So I think and specifically with Daniel, that is like the interesting thing about Daniel is that the at least demon version of him is played by a local actress named Summer Howell in Winnipeg. So it's a female wearing a prosthetic face of a young boy that we basically, our designer basically burned and then slashed, and then she had like. Yeah, so it was like that was a little bit of elaborate, but we knew we couldn't have her in the makeup chair all the time. So we did have to build like this prosthetic mask for her.
Well, more importantly, she also had, we could not find boys who were as athletic or who had movement skills like she did. She was a full-on jock, like real deal athlete. And so therefore we were like, well, she's the one. I mean, the way she moves, the way she literally could have auditioned for all the other ghost parts. She's like, no. I've got the demon. I'm doing the demon. Like she basically came in and just said, this is what I'm going to do. And just brought everything. And it was, it was so difficult for her to act like that, but she was such a champion and a trooper.
She like couldn't see, couldn't speak, all sorts of limitations.
Yeah, it was really, really, really challenging. I mean, I think, in a perfect world, we would have loved to have done everything practically, but what we really learned is we just did not have the time to test it, to achieve it. And then the other thing we learned is like, if we had known we were going to have to default to VFX in certain situations, we would have really planned some of that stuff, because on a budget of this size, when the VFX gets kicked down the road, you're sort of like, okay. And then you have to you do get creative, but it was, for us, if we could do it practically, that is always our desire. You know what I mean? Like we're children of Rob Bottin and Stan Winston and, KMB.
I love the approach you took. I thought it blended very well. And I mean, this is just for you guys. I love the way Daniel and his mom's ghosts leave in that fog, melt away in the fog. It's a really awesome set visual that I can't wait for people to see. And yeah, I'm getting the wrap signal, so I'm going to have to let you go. But thank you guys both so much. Seriously, I greatly appreciate it. And I hope you have great weekends.